Good morning. My name is Kayla Nuss. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Housing Authority, and I'm here to talk about the topic RAD, Rental Assistance Demonstration. And just some housekeeping at the beginning. This presentation, along with all the presentations, are on the flash drives that hopefully everybody received when they entered and got your name tag and everything. So sit back, relax. Hopefully we can get you excited. So, what is RAD, besides a really cool acronym? RAD is a tool that was created by HUD in 2012 to address a backlog of capital needs with public housing authorities. So in 2010-ish, they commissioned the housing authorities to go out and learn what their backlog of capital needs were. So these are non-emergency deferred maintenance. And what they found was, and again, remember, this is 2010, so that was 8 years ago already. They found that in 2010, there was $26 billion worth of deferred capital needs at public housing properties across the nation. And so HUD and Congress got together and they said, okay, how do we address this? If capital fund funding is not available, HUD doesn't have the allocated resources to be able to address that, so they needed to come up with an alternative way to give housing authorities a financing tool to update and address those deferred maintenance needs. So that's when they created RAD. All right, so this is going to get into the weeds a little bit, and I'm not sure who is all in the room, so if I'm going too fast, just please raise your hand and interrupt, ask questions. So RAD is the conversion of a public housing subsidy to a project-based Section 8 subsidy. So it's still funded by HUD, but it's coming from a different pot of money at HUD. A project-based Section 8 voucher is a voucher that stays with that property, with that building. What it does, though, is it gives those housing authorities and those owners the opportunity to go to a bank, just like a private person would, and get a mortgage on the property. That is a tool that public housing authorities do not have currently. As a public housing property, we cannot go and put debt onto the property. Through a RAD conversion, though, we can. So it's a way for owners to go into the private market, get that debt, get that equity to be able to do the capital improvements that are needed at that building. It's a way to preserve affordable housing in low-income communities. There is a contract which permanently creates low-income housing at that property. They say permanently, but what it is it's a 20-year contract with HUD, a project-based HAP contract, that it has an automatic renewal. So for 40 years, that unit would remain available to a low-income community. Okay? Residents would still continue to pay 30% of their income. The rest would be subsidized through that Section 8 voucher. The public stewardship is in place still because there are what we refer to as a RAD use agreement. So HUD is part of that closing process to ensure that the ownership and the use remain for a public purpose, which is to maintain that affordable housing. And it's a cost-neutral program, which means that HUD does not receive funding for this program. It does not cost the federal government more to operate this program. Right? So it's really just a switching of money. It used to be public housing money. Now it is coming from that Section 8 money, and it gives those owners, those public housing authorities, that availability to go seek additional funding. So what does that mean? So I've got some really exciting stats that just came out yesterday. So they're not part of this presentation, but at the end I'll give you information on where you can find this. Yesterday, HUD announced that they just reached 100,000 converted units. So that's a big milestone for RAD. 100,000 units have been converted to RAD. That equals out to $5.75 billion in investment, which has created 108,000 jobs nationwide. A lot of those jobs were for low-income individuals because we do have that Section 3 requirement as part of a RAD conversion. So that is really great news for the program. We also recently just increased the cap under RAD, so it allows approximately 30% of total public housing units to be able to convert. So, what does that mean for the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee? The Housing Authority looked at the RAD opportunity, started back in 2013, really looking at the numbers, crunching what is our need, what is the program, familiarizing ourselves. And in 2016, we were awarded a portfolio RAD conversion. So that means over the next 5 to 10 years, we will convert all of our public housing property through the RAD conversion to a project-based Section 8 contract. What does that mean for contractors like yourself? A lot of opportunity. So, over the next 5 years, we have identified our properties that we're phasing out, rolling out first, and we're estimating approximately $47 million in investment in those next 5 years. So that's major for the City of Milwaukee and also the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee. What is going to be the scope of work for these properties? RAD is a preservation tool. So our goal is to preserve low-income, affordable housing units. Earlier or throughout the conversation or through the conference, you might hear about the West Lawn Gardens transformation through Choice Neighborhoods. It is RAD, but it's a little bit unique in the sense that it's demolition, new construction. Most RAD conversions will be preservation, which means on-site, in-house rehabilitation. So what we plan to do is go to that property, update the exterior shell, make sure the facade, the roof, everything can last another 20 years, look at the mechanicals, update the common area, and also do some unit modifications. So we will be in all of our high-rises, all of our properties, we will be getting a minimum of 5% ADA handicap accessibility, which not all of our properties have right now. We do have elderly and adult disabled only properties, and those may not be at the 5% mark, which for that targeted population, it's really important for them to have that modification. So RAD will give us the money to be able to do that and address those residents. This is just an idea of what the scope of work might look like. Every property is going to be different. Every property has different needs. It'll have a different scope of work, and that is addressed on a one-by-one basis. So this is just a general idea of the type of work we're doing. This looks at our construction budget. So of that $47 million in construction work that we spoke about earlier, these are the building trades that we're estimating approximately. Now, one building might have a facade issue that requires more resources, which means our interior unit modifications would be reduced. It is a numbers game. We are only given X amount of dollars, so we will have to adjust as we see. But we're looking to do a lot of great work, and so that's something that contractors should be excited for over the next 5 to 10 years. This, again, is only over the next 5 years. It will be expanded more in the upcoming years. Here is some RAD communication and outreach tools. So we do have a RAD website. It's rad.hackham.org. On that website, you'll find our conversion schedule, so what properties we're looking to target, scopes of work, more about the RAD program. That's also where you can go out and find that really exciting news about the 100,000 nationwide and the economic impact of that 100,000 unit conversion. We have a RAD hotline and an email, so if you do have additional questions, you can go ahead and send those over and someone will get back to you. Questions? Questions about the RAD program, how it might impact residents, how it might impact our construction, how it would impact the Housing Authority, anything?
How many units are you guys planning in the Milwaukee area alone of the 100,000?
Sure. So the question was how many units in the Milwaukee area. So our portfolio has approximately just over 3,000 public housing units. So those will all be converted over the 10 years.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Hillside, a RAD, or will it be a RAD conversion at all?
Great. So the question again is Hillside a RAD? Hillside is currently public housing, so it is targeted to a RAD conversion. Hillside is not targeted at this time within the first 5 years. That project is very large, and so we have to balance our financial resources and knowing that they need a lot, just given on the size and their footprint. So we are looking at it, but no plans right now. Any other questions? Great. Well, I'll be around. If you do want to learn more, there's a question area. If you go out the room to the left and around the corner, there's more areas for questions. The Section 3, this all work here will be Section 3. So if you want to learn more about that, Trevor, Hackham. Oh, David.
One question before you go, which
Yes.
is how will the housing authority be procuring those construction services?
That is a great question. So the question is, how will Hackham be procuring those services? So the Housing Authority of the City of Milwaukee would hire a developer, and that developer will be the one to procure those services. So for instance, on our first two, so the West Lawn, West Gardens transformation at a Choice Neighborhood RAD, that is a Trevaux development project, so Trevaux does that procurement. And then Holton Terrace, which is the high-rise building, that is also a RAD conversion, which Trevaux is the developer on that. So they manage that.